Hello and welcome to this event on BTEC Internal Assessment Special Considerations. This session will include what is a special consideration, applying for a special consideration for an internally assessed unit, and where you can discuss a possible special consideration application and who you can discuss a possible special consideration with. The Joint Council for Qualifications, JCQ, defines special considerations as a post-examination adjustment to a candidate's mark or grade to reflect temporary injury, illness, or other indisposition at the time of an examination or assessment. It goes on to say that candidates will be eligible for special consideration if they have been fully prepared for and have covered the whole course, but their performance in the examination, production of coursework, or non-examination assessment is materially affected by adverse circumstances beyond the learner's control. It's important to note that special consideration can only go some way to assist a candidate affected by a wide range of difficulties. It cannot remove the difficulty faced by the candidate. This means that there will be some situations where candidates should not be entered for a qualification or a unitised examination. This is because only minor adjustments can be made to the mark awarded or the special consideration given. To make larger adjustments would jeopardise the standard of the qualification and the integrity. There are minimum requirements for enhanced grading, and these can be found in the JCQ Special Considerations Guide. All assessments measure what a candidate knows and can do. The overall grade awarded must reflect the level of attainment demonstrated in the assessment. The grades awarded do not necessarily reflect the candidate's true level of ability if attainment has been considerably affected over a long period of time. Where there are long-term circumstances preventing a candidate from reaching the competency standards, it may not be possible for us to make an adjustment. So what circumstances might affect a learner when you're considering submitting a special consideration request? So the examples on the screen are provided by JCQ, and they include temporary illness or accident or injury at the time of the assessment, a bereavement, and again, this must be at the time of the assessment. If a whole group has been affected by a bereavement, we would normally only consider those most closely involved. There may be a domestic crisis arising at the time of the assessment, and other circumstances including a serious disturbance during an assessment or an accidental event at the time of the assessment would also be considered. Other examples include participation in sporting events, training camps, or events at an international level that are taking place at the time of an assessment. For example, a learner is representing their club or country at an international level. Failure by a centre to implement previously approved access arrangements for a specific examination series or assessment would not be considered under a special consideration request. When you're applying for a special consideration for an internally assessed unit, centres will use the form SC1, which can be found on our website. Applications for special consideration are reviewed on a case-by-case basis by our team of experts, and applications must be made for every individual learner. For BTEC First and Nationals, applications should be submitted as soon as you become aware of a change in the learner's circumstances, which is out of their control. For example, a learner suffers an illness at the time of an assessment in February. You should alert Pearson and submit a special consideration request at that point in time. If you wait until the certification requests are made by the 5th of July, this may lead to a delay in results being issued and may hinder learner progression. For the Reform Tech Award, there is a terminal assessment rule in place, and applications for special consideration can only be made once all assessments have been completed. On the screen now, you can see a step-by-step guide of how you would approach submission of a special consideration request. First of all, the assessor will become aware of a learner with an incomplete assessment. The learner and the assessor will have looked at how they could mitigate this incident and use a range of techniques before considering submission of a special consideration request. Step 2 is if the special consideration needs to be submitted, you'll visit our website and download form SC1. Please remember to make your exams officer and quality nominee aware before submitting a special consideration request. Don't delay sending us the form, but make sure all sections are fully complete including any supporting evidence, such as attendance records or GP letters. The SC1 form and associated supporting evidence should be emailed to the email address shown on screen now. We will confirm receipt of the request, and we aim to respond within 45 working days, which is why we encourage you to submit any special consideration requests as early as possible. What outcome can you expect? Well, given the nature of internally assessed units, as you know, there is no single fixed assessment date because we have such a range of qualifications and internally assessed units. So before submitting a request, we ask you to consider all mitigation internally. A special consideration request should be a last resort. So for example, could you extend the deadline for the assessment? Could you encourage some independent study at home and involve the parents or guardians of this learner? What about after school or lunchtime clubs, just to support the learners with knuckling down and getting the work done? Have you involved any pastoral support to help with time management and prioritisation of tasks? And what about considering any alternative assessment methods? Remember, BTECs allow for a variety of assessment methods. Could you use Q&A to meet that assessment criteria? Could the learner present some work verbally? Or is it better that the learner types out and writes you an assignment? Where circumstances have led to a learner not being able to complete a significant amount of evidence, it may be more appropriate for the learner to be certificated on a smaller size qualification. We ask centres to consider this when they are submitting a special consideration request. And please note that we make no guarantee that any special consideration request will be approved. This is why we ask you to consider all of the alternative options before submitting a request. Who can you discuss the special consideration process with? Pearson has a dedicated team of subject advisors, and you can access contact details on our website. A subject advisor will be able to provide you with guidance on how to submit your application or discuss any alternative ways of teaching and assessing your learners. We have a team of dedicated customer services personnel who can support you operationally. And there is also the Pearson website. In particular, the page is dedicated to supporting with the process of submitting a special consideration application. It is important to note that these teams can support you in the process of submitting an application, but they cannot offer guidance on the content of your application. In addition, these teams will be unable to provide you with any reassurance on whether your application will be successful or not. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this bite-sized video.